Week 8, Lesson 2, Green Lantern and Green Arrow. The relaxing the Comic Code Authority and the critical success of the trilogy of Spider-Man issues looking at drugs caused DC Comics to take note and use two of their own characters to tackle many of the social and political issues of the day. The Silver Age Green Lantern teamed up with one of the earliest Batman ripoffs, the Green Arrow. Since we've already talked about the Green Lantern, let's take a quick summary of the Green Arrow. First appearing in November 1941 in More Fun Comics, issue number 73, Oliver Queen was a millionaire playboy who was trapped on an island and needed to learn how to survive using the elements of the forest. He quickly found that he was skilled at archery and hunted to survive. When he returned to the city, he dressed up like a modern Robin Hood and used his archery to help stop crime. While Batman developed his utility belt and gadgets, Green Arrow developed trick arrows, which were arrows with gadgets attached to the end of them. While Batman got the Batmobile, Green Arrow got the Aeroplane, a fast car used to fight crime, and eventually an Arrow Cave. For sidekicks, Batman got Robin, and Green Arrow got Roy Harper, who used the codename Speedy. Green Arrow went on to become the first non-founding member to join the superhero team of the Justice League of America, which Green Lantern and Batman were already members of. Whereas Spider-Man was making observations of drugs all on his own, DC decided to shake up the formula a bit by having opposing views on the subject. It was revealed that Green Lantern's political leanings were conservative and right-winged, while Green Arrow's political leanings were very liberal and left-winged. Green Lantern, Volume 2, issue number 76, was retitled Green Lantern, Green Arrow, as the two heroes took a road trip across America to see what the non-supervillain problems were caused by society. DC started taking some of the elements from Marvel that worked and added them into their own comics. In this case, it was two heroes who were working towards the same goals, with very different methods of reaching them. It starts off with Green Lantern saving an old man from an angry young man and getting garbage thrown at him for it. Green Arrow shows up and tells him that the man he saved was a crooked landlord who hadn't repaired his decaying building in years, and that the Green Lantern's strict interpretation of the law caused the youth to go to jail. Unfortunately, the youth was his 80-year-old grandmother's only provider. Green Lantern responds with, "I have a job, I do it." "I've heard that line before. From Nazi war criminals," Green Arrow retorts. Then, in one of the best 3-panel sequences ever drawn, an old black man comes up to the Green Lantern. "Only there's skins you've never bothered with. The black skins. I want to know how come. Answer me, Green Lantern." "I can't." Eventually, they take down the crooked landlord and Green Arrow makes a plea to Green Lantern's overseers, the Guardians, on why it's important to help the small guy. They travel across America. In one of their adventures, they come across a cult leader named Joshua, who had brainwashed Green Arrow's partner and occasional love interest, the Black Canary, into following him. This was a story clearly inspired by one of America's most notorious killers, Charles Manson, and his cult. The leader becomes more and more extreme until he creates a dangerous mob to take out people around him. In probably the most famous story of this team-up, Green Arrow and Green Lantern look at the effects drugs are having on urban youth. As they try and stop the distribution, they are caught and forced to take some drugs, which causes them to become almost useless and dangerous to those around them. They're saved and taken care of by Green Arrow's sidekick Speedy, who takes him to his place to let them recover. After they leave, Green Lantern goes back to see that Speedy is using drugs. Coincidentally, the drug known as speed. This was the first time we saw an established costume character taking illegitimate drugs, and there was no easy solution for his cure. In the very next issue, we see another youth die from overdose on the drugs. This is the first time that drug use was shown having an extreme negative impact. In Spider-Man, the drugs made the users ill or temporarily crazy, but nothing as permanent as death happened to them. Near the end of the issue, Speedy gives a speech about why he does drugs. "Drugs are the symptom, and you, like the rest of society, attack the symptom, but not the disease. But this symptom is worse than most. It maims, it pains, it dims you. It drives to the edge of insanity and over. And one day ends your trip on a slab in the morgue, with a tag around your toe. The issue after that, we're introduced to a champion of the downtrodden Black Americans, John Stewart, who is given his own Green Lantern ring by Hal Jordan's overseers, the Guardians, and becomes the next Green Lantern. For fans of the character, you might be surprised about how different he acts in his first appearances compared to the later ones. John Stewart is known for being one of the more level-headed and practical Green Lanterns, but when he first appears here, he's angry and impulsive. He insults senators and has a very disagreeable attitude. John is important for two reasons. First, he signifies diversity. While the Black Panther was the first black superhero to appear in American comics, Stewart is the first minority to take an existing hero's name. Secondly, he's one of the first major reservist characters, who becomes an established hero but spends most of his time in the background or not even mentioned at all for months at a time. If you couldn't tell, these issues were very heavy-handed in getting their message across to the reader. People and corporations use the law to their own advantage, even if it's an unfair law that hurts people in the environment. Almost all the villains Green Arrow and Green Lantern went after were bad people, using the law to hide their immoral activities. But what sets us apart from other superhero stories is that most of the bad guys didn't wear costumes, or even have superpowers. They were real villains, creating real-world problems. And most of those problems you could read about in news headlines in the early 1970s. This goes back to the early Superman issues of Action Comics, where Superman solves society's problems. But, unlike Superman, these characters didn't solve the problems. They just brought focus to them. The series was written by Denny O'Neil, who gives the dialogue an after-school special feeling, where there's no subtlety, so that even some of the youngest readers can understand what's going on. The art was done by Neil Adams, who draws realistic work on anatomy and backgrounds. He may very well be the first comic book artist we've looked at in this course who drew his characters with the proper anatomical proportions. Compared to almost all the other books being sold, these guys look very realistic, inhabiting a world that looked very much like America did in the 1970s. So, why is this important? Because times are changing, and unlike World War II, the problems of the 1970s were much more complex. Comics began to tackle real-world issues again, but did it with superheroes. The superheroes were less able to change society than they'd been shown to be able to do so in the golden age of comics. At this point, the two major companies making American comics were Marvel and DC Comics, both having their headquarters located in New York. But they were afraid to tackle these issues without established superheroes to frame the stories with. Questions to contemplate. Do you think that these stories would be better if it wasn't for the costumed heroes that face them, but two regular men? Would you be more likely or less likely to read a preachy comic like this if the characters weren't costume vigilantes, but regular people?